White. Many years ago, in a far-off kingdom, there lived a vain and beautiful queen. She had a very pretty stepdaughter called Snow White, and every day the queen worried that Snow White would grow up to be more beautiful than herself. The evil queen owned a magical mirror, and every morning she would say to it, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is the fairest of them all?" Every day the mirror would reply, "You, my queen, are the fairest of them all." One morning on Snow White's 16th birthday, the queen asked her mirror, who was the fairest of them all. The mirror replied without a pause, "You, my queen, are fair, it's true, but Snow White is fairer than you." The queen turned green with envy. She summoned her huntsman and said, "Take Snow White into the wild, wild woods and do away with her, so that she never returns to this kingdom." The huntsman took Snow White deep into the forest, but not into the wild, wild woods to do away with her, as he felt sorry for Snow White and wanted her to be quite safe from danger. When Snow White bent down to the bubbling stream to take a drink of water, the huntsman ran away back to the castle so that she was left all by herself. At first, Snow White was very scared as she'd never been alone in the forest before. However, she tried to be brave and started to sing a pretty song. Before long, all the creatures in the wood had gathered around to hear her lovely singing voice. The dear little animals all wanted to be Snow White's friend, and when she asked them if they knew anywhere she could stay for the night, they took her to a cozy little cottage. Snow White took a step inside the cottage. "The folk who live here are very messy. I shall give this place a spring clean." Snow White worked hard to make the cottage neat and tidy. After all that cleaning, she was so tired she fell asleep on one of the beds she had just made. Before long, the owners of the cottage returned. They happened to be 7 dwarfs who had been off at the mountainside digging for diamonds. The moment the dwarfs arrived, they were very surprised. The place looked spotless, and on a bed in the corner lay a beautiful girl, sleeping peacefully. Snow White woke up suddenly and saw the dwarfs watching over her. It wasn't long, though, before they all became friends, and the dwarfs asked Snow White to live with them. They were all very happy. Meanwhile, back in the tall stone tower, the queen asked her mirror the same question, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is the fairest of them all?" The mirror replied, without a pause, "You, my queen, are fair, it's true, but Snow White deep in the forest with the 7 dwarfs is still 1,000 times fairer than you." The queen turned red with rage and set off for the dwarf's cottage, disguised as an old woman. She took with her a red apple that she had picked from her magic apple tree, which grew by the side of the tall stone tower. She had an evil plan. Snow White had just finished sweeping when she heard a gentle knock at the door. She opened the door and saw a crooked old woman standing there. "Please, could I have a glass of water, my dear? I have walked a long way and I am very thirsty," said the old woman. Snow White fetched a glass of water and found a stool for the old woman to sit on. "Thank you for your kindness, my dear," cackled the old woman. Please accept this apple in return." Snow White thanked the woman and took a big bite out of the rosy red apple. But the moment Snow White swallowed the apple, she felt cold all over and fell to the floor into a deep sleep. The queen threw off her disguise and clapped her hands with glee. Her evil plan had worked. At that moment, the dwarfs came back from their day's work and saw Snow White lying on the floor. They chased the evil queen far off into the wild, wild woods. The dwarfs were very sad. They decided to lay Snow White outside upon a red velvet blanket so that the sunlight would wake her up again. But nothing seemed to stop Snow White sleeping. She slept there for days. One day, a handsome young prince was passing through the forest. He came upon Snow White, laid upon her red velvet blanket, and thought she was the most beautiful girl that he had ever seen. He bent down and gave her one kiss upon the lips. All of a sudden, her eyes flew open. Snow White was awake. The wicked spell had been broken. The dwarfs were so happy they danced and cheered. Snow White and the prince fell in love with each other and left that very day to stay in the prince's castle. They were married very soon after and lived happily for many, many years. The evil queen was never heard of again. The end.